functions. And what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through one part of trig modeling. And there's going to be two ways to graph these, where we're going to work with graphs, but we're going to write equations. A little bit different from what we did back in the trig unit. If you recall with the trig unit, when we did the, on the test, I had a question where I gave you guys the parent and the shift, and you guys wrote the equation. We're going to do it differently, where you're just going to get the graph itself, and you're going to be able to distinguish sine versus cosine and go from there. Now, one of the things with this stuff is that we will not worry about an H shift, because it just gets to be too many different possibilities. So we're just going to have K values. Now remember, you could shift them because sine and cosine are just pi over 2 away from one another. But in our case, we're just going to kind of identify which one we want to go with. So to remind ourselves, the two generic forms of an equation, y equals a sine b x minus h plus k, or cosine. Where the value of a was your what?
No.
Excuse me. The absolute value of a was your amplitude.
Yeah, that's it. Period.
Amplitude plus aptitude equals altitude. No, that's a good inspirational saying.
How did we find the period?
B.
It's at the end of the sentence.
2 pi over b.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was absolute value. I don't think we ever, in this class, we never really dealt with the negative value of b, so it wasn't a big deal. And then h and k was your left and right shift. Horizontal, vertical. So when we walk through these things, we graph them, and we graph them a bunch of ways. We did it with the parent. We did the parent graph, then shifted. Then we also started to walk through not having to do the parent graph. We didn't do as many of those until we did the inverse functions, when I showed you guys the shortcut that you'll learn in pre-calc. But I want to show you guys just a reminder of what all the parts meant, so we can take information and work backwards from it. So let's look at the graph of y equals negative 2 plus 3 sine of 4x. And let's graph this straight out of the equation without, now we're going to count it. We're right from the equation with no shift, okay, without doing like a parent and then a shift. We're just go right to the shift. We're going to drop the clutch.
Nice, dude. Rad.
When you shift, you need a clutch. And if you drop the clutch rather quickly, you're going to shift faster or kill the engine. But they still make shift stations.
Hey, both of our cars are shift. I only know how to drive stick shift.
Chris, right here, we all three have stick shifts.
I do too.
All four. Look at that. I don't know.
Grease is a fun.
I don't know how to drive.
What's your A value?
I've been driving.
3. What's your B value?
It's 4.
H.
I got more.
Okay. So we know we have an amplitude, an A value of 3, so we have an amplitude of 3. So it's going to go up 3, down 3. We know that we have a B value of 4, which allows us to find our period. Our period is going to be 2 pi over 4. Otherwise known as? Good. So when we graph these, we just did a quick little T-chart. And what did I put at the end?
Your end point.
What's in the middle?
Half of that.
What's here?
Half of that.
And what's here?
The first three
No,
times
that.
3.
Yeah, first one.
3.
You guys got good at that after a while because it was kind of the same problem over and over and over and over again. Now, the sine graph. When you're talking about a sine graph, where does it always start?
Zero.
It starts at its 0 line, then where does it go?
Up.
Oh, it goes up only if what?
A
It
is positive.
goes up if A is positive, down if A is negative. So in this case, it's going to go 0, A, 0, opposite A, 0.
No matter what, it'll cross the same point 3 times.
3 times, very good. That's where I was getting at. Sine graphs will always cross through a 0 line 3 times. It'll cross through its 0 spot 3 times, whereas a cosine graph will only cross through it twice. So in this case, before we plot anything, we know that our 0 line is going to move where? Down 2. So now I know my 0 line is going to be at -2. So I know I'm going to have this little 0 line here. So I'm going to start here, and then I have to go up how many? 3. And then I have to go down 3. So our sine curve did this. So graphing it straight from the equation without having to worry about a horizontal shift is relatively simple because you're just shifting your 0 up or down because of your k value. Now, what I want to show you guys when you're looking at a graph then is how these parts come about. The distance between, the vertical distance between the maximum and the minimum cut in half will always equal what? Your k value. Your k value is always going to be the average of the max min y values.
Is this just
Oh, I
for
think you said
sine?
the distance.
I meant, yeah, the distance between the two, when you cut it in half, so.
Is this just for sine or for cosine?
It's the average of your of your y values. So if I go up to 1 and I go down to -5, what's 1 plus -5? What's happening? There's my k value. We never go on top of it.
Okay, but she had a mustache. She would look exactly like Bob from Bob's Burgers. Like just the way you were standing up there teaching, you know, you were like Bob.
Yeah, if you had a mustache, you'd look like Sterling Archer when he wears a mustache.
So did you
Okay, honestly, to be honest with you guys, I don't know who either of those two are.
The world's best.
Don't look up Bob's Burgers.
Hey, JC, we got a new book report for you. What's that guy's name?
The show's called Archer.
You have to do that now. Yes, sir. Yeah. I just abbreviate because I don't like to.
Yeah,
Average
average.
age.
That looks like avenue of maximum.
Anyway.
Abbreviations.
Says the nursing student.
Fries with my 5 paper cards.
So the other thing I want to show you is that that's one way to help figure out a k value to get you your 0 line for sines, and eventually here we'll talk about it in cosine as well. The other thing that happens is that between your maximum and your minimum horizontally, this distance from here to here is half your period. So the distance between the maximum and the minimum is always going to be half your period. So if I look at this, going from 1/8 to 3/8 is how far?
Quarter.
So that's a quarter, and if I double it, what do I get? What's my period? Way. It's pi over 2. So your distance is between the horizontal distance between is going to be half your period. So now when we look at a graph giving you like a maximum and a minimum value, you can write equations.
Oh, yay.
Now if you see the graph, it's going to be easier to tell then if it's going to be a sine or a cosine graph. And what your A values are going to be, is going to be positive or negative. Now, we probably won't have time to get to the second way of doing this. We'll probably save that for tomorrow. But this is kind of the last little bit of the goofiness. So let's see here. If I look at it's people are actually thought it was a sinusoid, so it was like a dinosaur. So if it was a sinusoid,
That's a woman.
it's still a sinusoid. Yes, sir.
I think it means a boxing shape. It's going to be a sinusoid.
So it's a sinus. It's a sinusoid. Yeah. I thought it was funny. All right. So if I'm looking at this one, if I look at this curve, when I look at this curve, this one, is it starting at a 0 or is it starting at a maximum or a minimum?
Starting at
It's starting at a minimum. So if it's starting at a minimum, what is that going to be? It's going to be a cosine graph. And you're right, it's a negative cosine. It's got to be a negative A value because it starts at a minimum, goes to a maximum. All right, remember, sine graphs start at 0, go to A. Cosine graphs start at A, go to 0. Because I'm telling you we're not shifting left and right. Well, if it's a sine shifted down, this doesn't change, does it? It still could be a minimal. Because now the reason I know that it's not going to be a sine graph is look at the vertical distance between the two. How far is that? Go from -4 to 4. What's half of -4 plus 4? Where's my K value? 0. So my K value, by taking -4 plus 4, cutting it in half, gives me 0. That's my K value. So it has not been shifted. That's how I know that it's not a sine graph shift. Does that make sense? So that gives me 0 line here. We've already agreed that's going to be cosine because it started at a minimum and it moved. But it started at minimum, so my A value is going to be what? Negative. What's the A value? -4. So my A value is -4. What's the distance, the horizontal distance between 0 and pi over 3? Pi over 3. That's half of my period, so what's my period? My period is going to be 2 pi over 3.
Yes.
Which means I need to figure out my B value. Period is found by 2 pi over B. What's B? 3.
Oh, sorry.
Okay? So your B value here is going to be 3. Do you now have enough information to write the equation? Yes, sir.
Where did the value come from?
Where did the what?
The B value.
Period is found by 2 pi over B. So I set my period equal to 2 pi over B. Solve for B. So my answer is going to be y equals -4 cosine 3x. Yes, ma'am.
How do we know?
Because it starts at a minimum.
Are
It's-
you talking about off the y-axis?
Remember, if you look at the way that it works, once we figure out where our K value is going to be, that's going to be your 0 line. The 0 line, if it touches the graph twice, it's going to be a cosine graph. If it touches it 3 times, you're looking at a sine graph within one period of it. That's the other thing. When we get into more of the modeling stuff, when we're doing this regression-wise, you're going to look for sinusoidal graphs You'll be looking for that stuff for things that are cyclical, things that have a cycle, waves, one second, what do you call it? Tides. I don't know, average yearly temperatures between the months. Because in January, your temperature is low. Generally, it starts to warm up till about August-ish, and then your average daily temperature tends to go down again. And what happens after December? It becomes January, and it does it all over again. Isn't this not the same thing? A period is a cycle.
Oh no, you learned about it.
No, isn't it the same thing?
No. Cyclical, I think, is like cycles. Like if you like a cyclical worker, they only work, let's say, the summer part. But then periodic, what was it? I don't know. Ask me here. We'll explain it.
Yes.
So how do we know it's not shifting? Sign graph?
You can shift the sign graph. We're trying to make this easier.
Okay.
Okay? We're trying to make, and you guys, we can make this a sign graph that's been shifted. That's fine. But that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You could do that, but it's a pain in the butt.
So really the only difference between sign and cosine is shift it and make it.
Let's try the other one. Why don't you guys figure out this one?
It's like logging like 3 times.
I know we're very, very much lookalikes.
You had a hard time. Very, very much. I just
That's right.
Just remember, what the heck are we
The equation. You want to write the equation of this graph given those two pairs.
Oh, that's easy.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
And the easiest way to start it is to figure out what k is, and then draw your zero line to tell if you're going to be sine or cosine. Bless you.
Oh, this is a sign.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with taking your own sweet time to make sure you're correct.
Okay, tell them that next time take a test. Say your
Okay, fancy pants.
Well, it's closer to cosine.
What if you just shifted upward?
I guess
5 points?
it's just as far.
fun.
Oh.
So if I'm looking at this one here, first thing I'm gonna do is figure out what the k line is gonna be. Now, what's the average of 5 plus negative 15?
-5.
Negative 5. So my zero line is gonna be at negative 5.
How did that?
Okay. When I do that, I also then notice that I touch not once, not twice, but thrice. So is that going to be a sine or a cosine graph? Sine. I'm going to go with a sine graph here because I started at 0, go to an a value. Is my a value positive or negative? It's positive. How much did we go up? 10. So my a value is 10. It's going to be a sine graph. So I know it's going to be y equals 10 sine something. Now I gotta figure out the distance between 0.5 and 1.5. What's that? Are you okay by getting the 0 line? What's negative 15 plus 5?
And then you divide it by 2 times.
Correct. So you get negative 10. Sorry. Now going from negative 5 to 5, how much is that? 10. So now, how far apart is 0.5 and 1.5? 1. So 1 is half the period. How much is the period then? 2. So our period is going to equal 2, which has to equal 2 pi over b.
2 pi.
What's b?
Pi.
Pi.
2 pi Shakur.
Your b value has to be pi. So now your answer is 10 sine pi x.
Wait, there's no shift?
Minus 5. Sorry, forgot. And notice I didn't put it in parentheses, so that's okay. And I could have wrote negative 5 plus 10 sine pi x, and it would have been fine as well.
Why did we do this during the Passover and practice?
Because we're wanted, I don't know.
Forgot about this.
I know. No, it is, and we, with the new way that they want us to do all these different units with the Common Core unit stuff, one of the units itself is modeling. And they want us to try to bring all the modeling together at the same time. It's kind of cool to show how everything works together. But now that you guys have seen what the park stuff looks like, you kind of could have used a lot of the modeling stuff to figure out a lot of the park stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So again, next year will be the 4th year of teaching the Honors Algebra 2 class for me, because it's the 4th year we've had it. And it'll be the 4th year that I've rewritten the curriculum for it. So the order, the sequence, and the materials and all that. So, oh yeah, good times. Which is fine. Yeah, doing the same thing every year is kind of boring, but. But next year, it'll definitely, all these little modeling pieces will be within the units themselves. So that way we can do a little bit more of it. It might be better you guys offer.
Some people know the phase, the average of momentum, knowing the sine and cosine, that would have been
Yeah.
that one thing.
Well, that's why the one graph that I gave you guys, I had to give you guys the parent function to the shift. So that way you can see how it related with zeros and stuff like that. But now I can give you something and on that too. There's multiple ways to do these things. Do this one.
Cosine graph.
Are you sure?
No, it's not a cosine graph. It's a sine graph.
It's cosine.
No, that's sine.
cosine.
It's sine.
It's sin.
I can argue why it's a sine.
That's sine.
Because look, it starts at 0. It starts at 0. And then it crosses it 3 times. Then there's no h.
The zero.
What are you talking about, Cooper?
What do you mean one shut up?
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's a negative sine
he
graph.
said there's no h shifts in. So we already know it starts on 0 and it will automatically cross the same spot.
Wow. Where's a math down? Take that! Wow. Violence.
We need those. I have. I'm always talking.
What do you got?
Sandwich.
No, you're about to ask me something.
I was about to like say something, but I realized we're supposed to be doing it. Brain.
What? But remember, don't worry about your h shifts. So if you want to do one, go for it. Because there's many different ways of writing it out. But why not take the path of least resistance? Like water.
Alright, so y.
And then you're adding h in there. Why would you want to do that?
Y2.
Now if I ask you to write it with an h, then you can write it with an h. But I say if I don't, it's up to you. You don't need to. There's no reason. There's no reason.
Even literacy is, why does it bring up? I don't see the age after the y.
There is an H after the word. Zero. Oh,
Every single
Ray had,
It's great, yeah.
past like 12 years.
What's so hard about it?
Ray had.
Losers. Yes, sir.
So we could shift it as major one.
Oh, yeah, if you want.
And you take
Why are we getting something?
shifted 5.
That's what you came in.
So you could do it like.
What? Oh wait, there's no k value then.
So it is.
Shift it 10,000 pi over 3. Because that's
Well, yeah.
Okay, that's what we get. Yeah.
it would still be the
So
same.
your K value is going to be 0.
Y is equal to negative sine.
Sine graph, because it starts at 0, goes to A, opposite A. So this is a negative sine graph.
Yeah, y equals negative sine.
Yes, sir.
For the first one, you did something, and then you said k equals this, and you were like, this is why it's not the cosine graph. Can you do that again for this one? Because I want to write that down, but
What's negative 1 plus 1?
0.
Divide that by 2, what do you get?
0.
There's your value of K.
Oh, okay, I see what you're doing.
What we're doing here is we're taking the Y values of the points of the max min, just get the average of the Y values. That will always find you your K.
I have my
Because then your value from K to your max or K to the minimum is your A value.
Okay, alright, that's sweet. I like that.
What were you going to say?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What were you going to say, Cooper?
Oh, I think I got the right equation, but I'm not sure.
Oh, well, let's see here. So we have, is everybody okay that we know it's going to be a negative sine graph because it goes to the minimum first? What's the A value? Negative 1. So we have Y equals negative 1 sine. Now we got to figure out the period. From pi over 6 to pi over 2, that's the same thing as saying 1/6 to 3/6 is how far? 2/6 is 1/3. Double it, you get 2/3. So it's 2 pi over 3. So our period, in this case, is going to be 2 pi over 3. It means our B value is 3. And you're done.
Oh, I got y is equal to negative 1 sine 6. Because I took the pi over 3.
Remember, the distance between max and min is always going to be, that's half your period. So double it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So on these problems for tonight, it's on 14.5. I want you guys to do 10 through 15. Just write 6 graphs, 6 equations. I know you can. 865. Do 865, 10 through 15. Just 6 quick graphs. And I'll leave it up here so you guys can do it.